Welcome to the Tim Booker channel, Wisdom Worth Sharing. Wishing you a pleasant time listening to books. Today, I will interpret The Wisdom of Finance, with the subtitle, Discovering Humanity in the World of Risk and Return. The author of this book is Mihir Desai, a professor at Harvard Business School, specializing in finance, tax law, and entrepreneurship. Every year during graduation season, Harvard Business School holds a special event where MBA graduates receive their final lecture. In this class, there are no set teaching materials, allowing the teacher to decide what to share with the students. In 2015, the author received an invitation to deliver the last lecture to that year's MBA graduates. Initially, he planned to stay within his comfort zone and talk about familiar topics, like understanding and reversing the trend of stock buybacks in the United States at that time. However, after sharing his decision with a friend, the silence that followed acted as a wake-up call in the author's mind. He started reflecting on whether his planned lecture truly offered the life wisdom these students needed as they approached graduation. He asked himself if he believed the students would benefit from it. After careful consideration, he decided to step out of his comfort zone and abandon the familiar data and models. Instead, he chose to talk to the students about pursuing a meaningful life. Many people have long believed that finance is distant from the lives of ordinary people. But, in reality, finance is a tool invented by humans to improve their lives. Many financial concepts can indeed be meaningful in our lives. The author later discovered numerous parallels between financial concepts and works of literature and social realities. During that final lecture, he talked about how financial ideas could help us pursue a better life and received overwhelming praise. This led him to conduct further research on the topic, culminating in the book we are discussing today, The Wisdom of Finance. The book covers various intriguing life topics, such as effective risk management for personal life, why our most beneficial relationships may not always be with our closest friends, how to gauge the value we create in our work, and how to cultivate intimate relationships, among others. Today's interpretation will be divided into 3 parts: life, work, and love. In the first part, we will explore how the risk management principles in finance can guide our daily lives. The second part delves into finance's perspectives on value creation and how it inspires our work. Finally, in the third part, we will explore the lessons about love that we can glean from corporate mergers and acquisitions in the financial market. Sure, here's the translation. Alright, first, let's dive into the first part. Let's see how the concept of risk management in finance can guide our daily lives. In finance, the attitude towards risk is that it's omnipresent, and we can never completely eliminate it. Instead, we can manage risk and reduce it to a level we can bear. One of the most famous risk control strategies in finance is diversification. Its principle is well known: allocate your funds to diverse investment projects to avoid significant fluctuations in returns and potential heavy losses. But how was this strategy discovered, and how can it be applied in our lives? Many might not know that this strategy was used in fields beyond finance early on. The core idea is simple: don't put all your eggs in one basket. For instance, during the era of maritime trade, people would distribute goods among several ships, taking different routes to prevent catastrophic losses. However, the diversification strategy used in finance is not based on mere intuition, it has undergone rigorous mathematical proofs. In classic finance textbooks, we see proofs like this: suppose you have $10, and you have 2 investment options. The first is to invest the entire $10 in stock A, and the second is to invest $5 in stock A and $5 in stock B. Assuming both stock A and stock B have a return rate of 8%, after calculation, we find that both options yield the same return rate. However, option 2 has lower risk, meaning lower volatility in returns compared to option 1. Diversification allows us to reduce risk while maintaining the same returns. Moreover, if we continue to add more diverse stocks to the investment portfolio, the overall risk of the portfolio will keep decreasing until it matches the market's overall risk level. At that point, the risk of individual stocks has been entirely diversified. Today, we focus on how the diversification strategy can be applied in our lives. The author believes this strategy is particularly effective when applied to our most precious resources, time and experiences. The book mentions the renowned basketball player Stephen Curry, who, in his youth, didn't solely focus on basketball but participated in various sports such as baseball, football, track and field, golf, and rugby. This diverse experience honed his overall physical skills and reduced the risk of injury, as he engaged different parts of his body through various activities. The strategy of diversifying experiences in life is especially crucial in the early stages of life. When we are uncertain about our strengths, betting on our intuition may lead us astray. Diversifying our experiences allows us to observe which areas yield the highest returns and then incline towards those areas. From a life cycle perspective, this becomes a form of risk management. But that's not all. When we delve deeper into understanding diversification, we find an essential point worth noting: to minimize risk as much as possible. When choosing a new asset to add to the portfolio, we should opt for assets that differ significantly from existing ones. For instance, adding stocks from different industries is more diverse than adding stocks from the same industry. Adding bonds to the portfolio is more diverse than adding more stocks. Selecting assets with larger differences can further reduce the overall portfolio's risk. Now, how can this insight inspire our lives? The author suggests paying attention to the people we build our social network with. After stepping into the professional world, we tend to make friends with many individuals in the same industry or circle, which is natural since we have more shared topics with them. However, from a diversification perspective, besides these acquaintances, we should not neglect or even consciously spend more time and effort in maintaining relationships with individuals from different circles, industries, and thoughts. These interactions not only expand our career opportunities but may also bring unexpected chances during professional lows. In essence, more friends mean more pathways. If our friends come from diverse backgrounds and industries, it forms a robust network that lowers the risk of encountering difficulties with no way out. To further understand this issue systematically, we can use a financial thinking model. In financial markets, people measure how the return volatility of an asset relates to the market's overall volatility using the beta value. For instance, if a company's stock has a beta value of 1.5, it means that if the market rises by 10%, its stock will rise by 15%, and if the market drops by 10%, its stock will drop by 15%. So, the higher the beta value, the more the asset follows the market's overall volatility. Applying this concept to life, the author suggests identifying the high beta, low beta, and negative beta assets in our lives. High beta assets are those individuals who come and go with your luck, or they are around only when profitable for them. Low beta assets are those who stick with you no matter the circumstances. Negative beta assets are those who shine in difficult times and are willing to help you. The author believes that compared to high beta assets, low beta and negative beta assets are often overlooked. However, they are the ones we should value the most: high-value friendships. Each one of us should regularly contemplate whether we invest too much time in our high beta assets and whether we pay enough attention to our low beta and negative beta assets. Feel free to share your thoughts on these two questions in the comments section. Sure, here's the translation. Alright, now we move on to the second part. Let's talk about how value is created from the perspective of finance and what insights it brings to our work. In the workplace, we receive a salary from our bosses and, through our labor, create returns for them. Similarly, in the financial market, investors and fund managers follow a similar logic. Fund managers receive funds from investors and, through their efforts, create returns for the investors. So, how do we measure the value created by a fund manager? Firstly, it's essential to understand that every investor has an expected return when entrusting their funds to others. For example, if you deposit money in a bank, you expect a certain percentage of interest after a year. If you invest in a fund, based on its historical performance, you have an expected return, say 10%. If, after a year, the actual return of the fund is exactly 10%, investors won't perceive any value created. If the return is 8%, they might feel at a loss. Only when the return exceeds the expectation, like 15%, does true value creation occur. This logic is easy to understand because any investment requires us to consider the opportunity cost of time. If receiving $100 now and $110 a year later brings similar satisfaction, then those $10 represent the time cost in your mind. From another perspective, it's the expected return we mentioned earlier. The author says that every fund manager faces a harsh yet real logic: if your return just meets the investor's expectations, then you haven't created any additional value beyond the cost of capital. This principle applies similarly in the workplace. If the returns you bring just meet your boss's expectations, then in their eyes, you haven't created any extra value. To create value, your returns must surpass their expectations. This insight offers us two inspirations. First, strive to create higher returns, that's self-explanatory. Second, learn to manage your boss's expectations. For instance, when facing uncertain tasks, don't make commitments easily. When you lack enough confidence in a particular skill, don't show off prematurely. Also, before taking on a risky project, pay attention to the probability of returns falling short of expectations or even incurring losses. Assess the maximum possible loss and communicate these risks with your boss in advance. Practices like these help manage expectations. Additionally, the value creation principle we discussed earlier leads to another inference: occasionally exceeding expectations is not ideal. The best value creators should consistently bring returns beyond expectations. How can we achieve this? The author's suggestion is never to stop investing in yourself and continuously increase your investments. With the power of compounding, your growth will accelerate. Regarding how to invest in yourself, the book doesn't delve further. However, a person who is never satisfied with the status quo and continuously invests in self-improvement will repeatedly find moments of exceeding expectations throughout their career. Besides explicit knowledge, there's a lot of implicit capital in the workplace that requires conscious self-investment for improvement. This includes communication, presentation, dressing, posture, understanding, emotional stability, and more. Of course, compared to explicit knowledge, enhancing these implicit capitals is a slower process that demands patience and repeated practice. Nonetheless, it is a process that can provide enduring support for our career. In the workplace, when explicit knowledge is at a similar level, those who bring more unexpected value are often those who focus more on accumulating implicit capital. Alright, now we enter the third part. Let's talk about how to apply financial wisdom to our love life. Let's begin with a story, referred to as the Pear Blossom and Begonia love story. Pear Blossom was a young and beautiful girl, while Begonia was a successful middle-aged man. There was a 20-year age difference between them. Before they met, Pear Blossom had experienced 2 failed marriages and felt weary in body and mind. On the other hand, Begonia had gained some fame due to her beauty and knew that she needed a stable home as she realized the fleeting nature of youth. After encountering Begonia, Pear Blossom pursued her passionately, and they went on dates in various cities like Paris, Beijing, and New York. During their conversations, they discovered shared values and quickly decided to get married. The news of their engagement was covered by major media outlets like the New York Times, attracting considerable attention. However, not long after the wedding, cracks began to appear in their relationship. Pear Blossom discovered that Begonia had a strong and stubborn personality, often going back on crucial commitments. Meanwhile, Begonia found fault with Pear Blossom's outdated mannerisms. Their love for each other came and went like a whirlwind, and within a year, their marriage was in serious crisis. Nonetheless, they chose to continue living together despite the difficulties. 8 years later, they finally reached the step of divorce. This seemingly beautiful love story ended tragically. Now, it's time to unveil the truth. The Pear Blossom and Begonia love story, from falling in love to a hasty marriage and then to divorce, is actually a storyline of the Time Warner and AOL merger that took place around 20 years ago. The author emphasizes that the drama in real-life situations only increases, not diminishes. Pear Blossom represents Time Warner, a traditional media company with a business spanning publishing, film, and television. Begonia symbolizes AOL, a rapidly growing internet service provider. In the year 2000, they decided to merge into a company called AOL Time Warner, which drew global attention. The merged company's market value reached $350 billion. However, after the merger, numerous operational issues arose, and the market value plummeted. In 2009, the company split, returning to its original states as 2 separate entities, and its overall market value lost over $200 billion. The author believes that we can draw valuable lessons from this failed merger case, as the most common reasons leading to failed business mergers are strikingly similar to those causing failed marriages. So, what lessons can we learn from the AOL Time Warner merger? Firstly, rushing into a marriage without careful consideration is a mistake. Time Warner and AOL only spent 2 months from initial contact to the merger decision, and the merger process itself progressed rapidly. This was largely influenced by the CEO of Time Warner at that time, who was eager to accomplish something notable before his tenure ended. Similarly, the CEO of AOL was in a hurry to proceed with the merger while the company's stock value was high, knowing that it might not last long. Consequently, they hardly heeded any advice, internal or external, and impulsively pushed forward with the merger, leading to negative outcomes. Another crucial lesson is to thoroughly understand the background of the other party. Before the merger, Time Warner failed to conduct proper due diligence on AOL, only to discover post-merger that AOL had severe accounting fraud, significantly inflating its financial statements. Such a situation is quite common in business mergers, as the acquired company naturally desires a high acquisition price, but the acquiring party must not neglect conducting thorough investigations. Additionally, one should not overly rely on the other party's strengths to compensate for one's own weaknesses. Time Warner, as a traditional media company, was striving to adapt to the digital media age and believed that acquiring AOL would swiftly address its technological lag. However, the integration of Time Warner's existing media resources with AOL's internet services proved challenging and far from ideal. Though many mergers aim to achieve resource complementarity, it does not mean that acquiring a company or merging with it will automatically make the other's strengths entirely one's own. Just like taking supplements, individual body systems may react differently, and even between two independent entities, the integration requires careful design, resource alignment, personnel integration, and collaboration adaptation. It's not a simple transplant. Apart from these, the book also mentions other lessons like differing corporate cultures, underestimated integration costs, unequal positions during the merger, and inadequate post-merger management and operations. You'll find that many of these problems encountered in business mergers also appear in love life. However, it's worth noting that not all business mergers end in failure, just as not all love stories are tragic. For instance, in the 1920s, the General Motors Company's acquisition of Fisher Body Company proved to be a successful example of knowing and understanding each other, leading to a happy and enduring marriage. The key is to sufficiently comprehend each other's traits, preferences, and needs during frequent interactions and create a relationship where both parties naturally grow closer, making the merger an inevitable and appropriate choice. The author's favorite version of mergers is neither hasty nor forced, but rather a gradual progression from acquaintance to love, ultimately culminating in a thoughtful and well-considered decision. Whether in emotional, collaborative, or financial aspects, this kind of thoughtful decision-making proves to be the most suitable one. As exemplified by Fisher Body and General Motors, their story illustrates the importance of knowing and understanding each other's traits, preferences, and needs through frequent interactions, leading to an inevitable union where they fit together seamlessly. It has proven to be a successful and happy marriage lasting for decades. Alright, the above is the key content that I wanted to share with you in this book. Let's summarize today's insights, which are divided into 3 parts: life, work, and love. In the first part, we discussed how the diversified investment strategy in finance can help us manage risks in life. For example, in our early life, we can choose to diversify our investments and expose ourselves to various learning fields, constantly observing where our investments yield the highest returns, and then tilt towards those areas. Additionally, when building interpersonal networks, we should consciously allocate time to interact with people from different backgrounds, industries, and perspectives. We should also differentiate between high beta, low beta, and negative beta assets in our lives and place greater value on friends who stand by us in difficult times and are willing to offer help. In the second part, we talked about the perspective of value creation in finance and how it can inspire us in our work. We learned that every fund manager faces a harsh but real logic: if your returns merely meet investors' expectations, you essentially haven't created any value beyond the cost of funds. In our work, we can apply this perspective to become ideal value creators who consistently deliver returns that exceed expectations. To achieve this, we must not only strive to generate profits but also learn to manage the expectations of our superiors while continuously investing in ourselves for future growth. In the third part, we discussed what we can learn about love from corporate merger cases in the financial market. We observed both failed cases of hasty marriages and successful cases of love growing over time and mutual support. Apart from these, the book also mentioned the risk management concepts embodied in insurance and options, as well as the value concepts reflected in financial asset pricing models. Furthermore, the book explored the conflicts of interest between a company's shareholders and managers. Alright, today we've covered the contents of this book. Congratulations on finishing another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to Tim Booker Channel's audiobook channel, like, and share it with your family and friends. Wisdom is worth spreading to create a better future. Thank you and goodbye.